The winter of our lives as a metaphor for death. Dark academia as a metaphor for a small death, the ego death, the death which represents transition to a different part of life. It might seem that these two go hand in hand, but what we're going to talk about today is actually how I think that there is a little bit of something else going on symbolically with the winter of the human soul, as well as the summer and the harvest season. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion list, over 800 videos strong. Number two being the Dark Academia playlist, a playlist dedicated to the ascetic and aesthetic of Dark Academia. The poem in question today is The Sheaves by Edwin Arlington Robinson, and it reads as such. Where long the shadows of the wind had rolled, green wheat was yielding to the change assigned, and as by some vast magic undivined, the world was turning slowly into gold, like nothing that was ever bought or sold. It waited there, the body and the mind, and with a mighty meaning of kind. That tells the more it is not told. So in a land where all days are not fair, fair days went on till another day. 1,000 golden sheaves were lying there, shining and still, but not for long to stay, as if 1,000 girls with golden hair might rise from where they slept and go away. Again, we're going to do it this way. Spring normally represents youth, and it represents the learning period, the growth period. Then you have summer, which is the meat of life. It is the work period. It's when you earn so that you might retire someday. Then you have fall, which is where you are setting it. Okay, in life, it's sort of after 40-ish in what we consider today. And it is where you are setting things up for the rest of life. You are, if you have accumulated assets, you are placing them so that you can live off of them. If you are talking about farming, this is when you are harvesting the yield. This is the harvest of life. Then you have winter, which is late life. It is when you are preparing for death. Now, this doesn't have to be all negative. We all have to come to terms with the fact that we're going to die. But there are other things that we have to consider as well. How are we setting things up for the future generations? If you have children, how are you preparing them? How have you prepared them? How are you going to live your late life? There is a good deal of dying that is not the dying portion. It is the portion where you are appropriating. It is appropriation of assets, we will say. And again, this doesn't have to be money. This doesn't have to be assets, physical assets. Have you prepared your loved ones for life without you? Things like that. I think it's, when we talk about Dark Academia, it is tempting to simply say that it is the winter of life. That what you're doing there is a death of the ego. And I've talked about that extensively in this Dark Academia playlist. But there's more to it than that, and there's more to Dark Academia than that. And this poem, I think, when scientists go and they date things, when scientists go and they study years, two ways that they'll do this are with ice cores. And you can tell about an atmosphere from what shows up in the ice core. You can tell where the winter had come and frozen the ice hard. And you can tell where the next melt, the next spring, started to happen. With tree rings, you see the different sizes of the ring. How much did a tree grow in a period? This poem here, what we're talking about early in the poem, is the summer portion. You're talking about the work, and then you're talking about the harvest. Shining in 1,000 golden sheaves were lying there, shining and still, but not for long to stay, because they have to be consumed. As if 1,000 girls with golden hair might rise from where they slept and go away. I think that what dark academia represents if we're looking at tree rings, is a very small tree ring. This poem talks about the work portion and the harvest portion, where we are taking things, where we are growing things, and then where we are taking them. I think that is what largely dark academia is. I think that dark academia represents this period of life condensed into a small tree ring. The smaller rings in trees represent years that are maybe difficult and condensed. The tree stops growing in winter. It goes into a hibernation, the same way that we do. Representing dark academia simply as death does not, in fact, imply the work that goes into it. I think that dark academia, with this accelerated year that we have from tree rings, that we have from ice cores, is a more accurate representation. It is a time of seclusion, but it is a time of great work. It is a time of doing the work, the summer, and then trying to incorporate the work, which is the fall. Putting these in a condensed tree ring of life really, I think, helps the self come to terms with that ego death, with that death of what the construct of the self had been. I think that there's a great deal of dark academia, which is not just the death portion. It is the meat of life portion, as well as the harvesting portion. We've talked in this series also about dark academia gone awry. That is the mad scientist, the person who is completely lost, the person who has gone off the deep end. There is that great danger with dark academia, where what happens is you retreat into this recess, and it becomes the long winter. I think the winter portion of it is actually fairly brief, but very intense. I think that dark academia is something which is undersold in its intensity, because to condense a summer, a fall, and a winter into a smaller portion of life than would normally be considered does take a toll. It does force the self into a growth mode, as well as a coming to terms mode, as well as a leaving behind mode. And I think that all of these are part of the core of dark academia. To accelerate, not the spring. I don't think that the spring has much to do with dark academia, other than to say the old springs that I have lived are gone. They are done. The spring will have to be something different from now on. And there is a spring to follow the dark academic winter. That is all I have for this video if you like or appreciate what it is that I do here. Hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.